What up, my freaks? RuinousInsight here with part 89 of my Total Warhammer 3 modded Karl Franz campaign. So as we saw last time, we had a very nice little battle with Peter, our run-and gunner, who was able to ambush a force belonging to the Oracles of Tzeentch and destroy it. This will hopefully make our lizard friends happy and a little bit safer in their territory, and will allow Peter to proceed southward with the forces of Volkmar the Grim as a little bit of an extra backup, and hey, maybe we can even get more ambushes. We also ended the episode off by getting another underway interception with Alberic Haupt Anderson, who is our follower army in this particular case, but you know what, he can still fight, I guess. We will have to be careful as it is an underway interception, and funnily enough, we could probably just decline the attack and the AI will end up like in danger anyway. Obviously this army would prefer a field battle, but nonetheless we're gonna give this a quick fight just for the fun of it, so here we go, cinematically. Alright, no speech apparently, or if there was a speech, it was too quiet. And what the heck is this lantern? That thing is huge, look at that. That's like the size of... It's bigger than a giant. Why did the Skaven build a giant lantern, like just to light the place up? Kind of interesting. Interesting. But anyway, here we go, an underway battle with an army, a follower army at that, not a main army, that is probably in terrible position for fighting in underways. We can't get around the enemy, so we can't deploy in such a way that we'd like, and all we can do is rush forward, damage the enemy, and then retreat all the way back. But this is also one of the shorter underway maps, so we don't even have that long of a distance to run all the way to the edge. Granted, I still don't think that we can lose, but this does mean that we can take quite a bit of damage. Anyway, the battle will begin with us firing our war wagons, our non-mortar war wagons, into the enemy doom wheels. Some very solid targets for our war wagons to focus down, because they're great at assassinating single entities, and that's a big old single entity. Sorry about the camera work, the edge of the map was jumping around. Anyway, here come our Pistoliers and our other Outrider units. Looks like the second of the Doom Wheels will go down as well, and at the very least, the war wagons have done their job. The enemy is rushing forward fairly quickly, however, Plague Monks are booking it forward into or towards our Pistoliers, and well, just, I guess, our entire line, so we will be backing up shortly, or rather than allowing them to fight. There we go. I guess one of the minor problems with Pistoliers is they have a bad, or maybe the... Actually wasn't quite sure who was doing that. Maybe it was the war wagons. Yeah, they have a tendency to fire at single units, because I guess they're sniper assassin sort of units, which means they're not really great at clearing out massive blobs of enemies. Rather than one war wagon firing at like 6 units, I don't know how many projectiles a single war wagon has, it'll all fire at 1, which means we have a very limited number of enemies that we can knock out. Not that it'll be a particularly big deal in this situation. Anyway, continue to back up, though there isn't really much space to back out anymore, and the balance of power remains roughly even, very, very slightly, I should say, in our favor. Unfortunately, the enemy Warplug Jezzails, Rattling Guns, and Poison Wind Mortars have survived, all of which are very much a threat to our units, though to be fair, at least some of them are a decent threat to the enemy as well. Anyway, here come our Outriders with grenades, who are going to probably be pretty instrumental here at clearing out blobs of enemy units. We've also had to force both the Pistoliers and the war wagons to remain still, rather than run and act as a front line. We're going to keep the war wagons here, mostly because they provide a sufficient amount of I don't know, wall aspect, I don't know what to call it. HP and mass, basically, in order to prevent the Pistoliers from just getting wrecked, as the enemy will have something of a difficult time in knocking those war wagons out, at least quickly, at least without the at least without the Warplock Jezzails and the Rattling Guns, though we can see the latter are beginning to fire as well. Several of the Pistoliers have gone down, though these guys did get trapped by the Warp Grinders, so hardly surprising, and it does look like the enemy Poison Wind Mortars can do a lot of damage. This poor Outrider unit got completely obliterated by that unit of Poison Wind Mortars, so good job to them. That said, we're actually starting to look a lot better. A few more volleys from our units and the enemy main line will most likely collapse, and as soon as it does, we can move forward into the enemy range instead. There we go, fire away. Gotta get those Warp Grinders off the field so that they can do no more damage. We've also sent our Lord forward to try to kill the enemy Warlock Master, who will be routing soon. Definitely gotta be careful about killing off our own Lord accidentally. And there's also the fact that our Lord currently doesn't have a mount, which is unfortunate. Anyway, as I said, the enemy main line has, by the looks of it, pretty much collapsed. There's still a couple of Storm Vermin fighting, but we are now able to move forward. Which means we chase the enemy down, we fire into their backs, and hopefully the battle will be ours shortly. Grenades still flying, gotta knock out all of these Skaven Slave Slingers and whatever other range units remain. We really gotta focus down those Poison Wind Mortars and those Jezzails as well, as they're dishing out the damage. Alright, and thus we're going to start focusing them down with our War Wagons in particular. Come on now. Any second. And, ooh, it looks like another one of our units of Outriders is getting focused down by those Poison Wind Mortars. These guys did a fantastic job. Look at that. 28k damage. Yeah, I really should have focused these guys down first. Granted, it's difficult for them to knock models out still, so they're not probably going to be able to kill off any unit, but the amount of damage that they've dealt has been fantastic. Well done to them. And this is probably the only time that they'll be able to do this sort of thing, as this is also probably the only time I'll ever bother to accept an underway battle with this army, as it's not supposed to fight in the underway. But all in the name of fun. Anyway, here come the various war wagons. They're going to all now focus down first the Poison Wind Mortars, which I really should have done at the start. In fact, I did try to get the mortar war wagons to fire at them, but unfortunately the enemy main line closed with us a little bit too quick to knock them out. Maybe I should have been willing to take a little bit more damage in order to take those guys out. Anyway, with that, the last of the enemy units will rout and the army will shatter, and the battle will be ours. A Pyrrhic victory due to the amount, I guess, of damage we've taken on a few of the Horse units, as they did have to sort of work as a main line for a little bit, and of course most of it, I think, from those Poison Wind Mortars. Man, imagine if the enemy had brought like a bunch of them, like 5 Poison Wind Mortars. That would have been a very interesting army, though I think in that case I would have just told most of our units, or at the very least the War Wagons and the Pistoliers, to charge forward into melee until they reached the back lines, even if they took some damage doing so, because we do still have mass for charges on our War Wagon, so it's still possible to knock a bunch of enemy units around and disrupt their formation in the same way that we did early in the game, or early in the campaign, I should say, with Peter and his relatively limited number of War Wagons. Anyway, Pyrrhic victory, but that's just fine. We're in Allied territory, and this army is destroyed. Alrighty, there we go. Certainly took a little bit of damage in this completely unnecessary battle, but it was just for fun, A and B. It's not like we actually lost anything. The damage was primarily to the Pistoliers and a little bit to the Outriders, but essentially somebody had to act as a melee line for us, especially as this was probably an underway battles in general are going to be the worst type of situation possible for these follower armies, because well, they're built around being able to run around the enemy and separate the enemy army, divide and conquer, etc., which you just can't do in those narrow choke point underway battles. But hey, a Berserker sword, it's something. It's something to be turned into hopefully something else, something better. Alrighty, it looks like Luther Harkin will attack the Blood Swamps. That's just fine, let him. I'm not going to bother fighting the battle. If he wants to take it, he can, but that means he'll be destroyed. Oh, well, well, well. Noctilus wants to peace out now, does he? That's not going to happen. After we destroy him at that, and the Drowned, you want to peace out as well. I don't know why you would want to peace out considering how far away you are, but we're also not going to do that. We'll see if they do anything interesting, and ooh, I do see Silostrum moving up towards one of our armies there, and damn, I really wish that the map didn't get turned around. Helmand Gorst wants a non-aggression pact, really? Really? Okay. That's funny. I love the vampires to undeath, but yeah, they're not the most trustworthy. Peace with Norska, no, you guys are dead as well. I'm gonna take a little bit of time, but you are most certainly dead, and it looks like Olav Hilmarsson will indeed attack the settlement. Granted, once again, it's a settlement we don't care about, and if he succeeds, he'll only just be here to get killed by Gavin, so... This doesn't seem like the brightest move, but nonetheless, we're gonna fight this, even if it's a last stand for these guys, just because I think it'll be a fun time, so here we go.
In the name of Sigmar!
Alrighty, in the name of... What the heck is this? Why are we in Cathay? Huh. Well, that's not right. We should most definitely not be in Cathay. Yeah, this does not look like Norska, guys. We're not in Norska anymore. This was kind of shocking. But interesting. Well, either way, this should be an interesting battle, I guess made more interesting by the difference of locale. I guess you don't see Norskans in Cathay all that often, minus Village's sub-faction, the USAC there, or the vassal faction that he has, if they do survive. But anyway, don't know whether we can pull this off, especially as I didn't realize when we had started the battle that the enemy has some Norskan whalers, a couple of them, which are like souped up super versions of the Marauder Hunters with javelins. They hit quite hard, 47 armor-piercing missile damage with stagger shot at that, and 60 armor, so very respectable and quite fun to use as well. But anyway, in terms of how we're going to try this battle out, we've deployed a decent amount of units here and here. We're going to use this place as a choke point, as the choke here is extremely narrow, while our crossbows dish out the damage to these four units of Marauders, two of which are champions and thus really threatening to the rest of our army. Then our hero as well, or our hero and lord, and a decent amount of our units are sallying out over on this side because we have 1 and 2 towers close by, this one actually in range of the enemy, and thus we're going to hope to clear these guys out, then move back up on top where we will defend against the enemy. 2 units holding the choke of this bridge, and then 2 units holding here, and we'll be sending a unit of gunners to help them out and hopefully gun down the enemy feral mammoth while the rest of these guys hold. At least that's the plan. Let's see if it survives contact with the enemy, or at the very least how long it survives contact. Alrighty, gunners are firing away at the enemy blobs of units while our Arch-Elector charges directly into the enemy piles of units. We want to get the Soulfire, or Grand Soulfire I should say, on cooldown as fast as we possibly can. It does an absolutely massive amount of damage, and while it didn't really do much to the Fimir, it basically killed those Marauder Hunters and those regular Marauders. Once the spell is cast, we move our hero out because we can't have him die or be too heavily damaged, as otherwise we would lose access to those buffs. And now it's time to turn towards the Fimir and the other units. We're going to try to surround them in such a way that our crossbows and our gunners can continue to fire into them, and it looks like they will be sufficiently hurt by all this to rout fairly quickly, especially as we have pikes here, and the anti-large helps out. Alrighty, well, it looks like over on this side we have managed a pull off a victory. We are now switching over to this side. The enemy has blobbed up very, very nicely for us, and our mortars are going to fire into these enemies. Oh, you gotta love the Cathay maps, though. They always look so nice, don't they? Anyway, we're going to fire our mortars over the walls, and similarly, we're going to do the same with the crossbows. 2 units of them focusing down those blobs of enemies, while our pikes and our swords hold, or I should say our spears and our pikes and our swords. And there we go. Obviously, the melee units are not going to win against the Marauder champions. They just need to hopefully hold long enough for the crossbows and the mortars to dish out the damage. This is also a fairly large commitment of our units to this side of the map, so we really need to make it work for us. As obviously the enemy are much more elite than ours, both in unit type as well as the fact that they actually have buffs, and obviously we do not. Alright, how are we looking here? The mortar is certainly doing work. Both of the enemy Marauder champions remain, but the regular Marauders are out. Makes sense considering the much more elite troops are the ones that are sticking around, but it is going to clearly take quite a bit more work to knock them out. Good job to the mortars and the crossbows. In the meantime, let's see what's happening over on the other parts of the map. Looks like the enemy War Mammoth has nearly made it, but we have moved our handgunners in to try to gun it down as it tries to break through, while the enemy Lord is in fact rushed ahead of his army on his chariot, and ooh, looks like he's already done a very decent amount of damage to our swordsmen here, though hopefully the pikes at least, or spearmen I should say, behind them will still be able to hold. Wasn't really expecting the Lord and the enemy Cav to move up ahead like this without the support of the rest of their army, or I would have swapped the places between the pikes and the swords. But oh well, it looks like the enemy Lord will move forward and into the pikes, and will still hold there, or spears rather, although it looks like the enemy will be chucking javelins at them as well. They don't appear to be engaged with the swords, who are only just a couple of them hitting the enemy. But oh well, not a big deal. Our Lord is no longer needed down here, obviously, since we managed to pull off the win there, and is now going to head towards the enemy Lord instead. The enemy Mammoth has arrived and is taking lots and lots of hits from our handgunners, while it's distracted by our infantry, dropping down to about 2/3 of its HP, and probably taking significant damage with every volley. Keep gunning. There we go, fire away. As long as it doesn't try to charge forward and use its mass to decent effect. Oh, it is in Rampage, so it doesn't matter. It won't be able to charge through because it's just attacking whatever is closest to it, which means the handgunners should have this. It won't be able to kill our infantry fast enough to do anything. And there we go, down goes the Mammoth, or well, actually routing goes the Mammoth, but close enough. In the meantime, more of the enemy units have come back, and our swordsmen have unfortunately routed, and only the pikes remain. We are still firing with our crossbows here, but considering the amount of ammunition that they have expended so far, I think this was a pretty good deployment of them, as they are, well, at least one of them is liable to run out of ammo before the end of the battle, and they can continue firing into the sides or flanks of these enemy units. Unfortunately, with the pikes surrounded by another unit of Marauders here, they will be breaking shortly. Even with the support of the mortars, I don't think they'll survive, especially as more enemy units are moving into the field, though they will have taken a morale shock as our Lord has managed to kill off the enemy Lord here with the help of those pikes and swords, so good job to him. And he is rushed forward a little bit, though it looks like the enemy is going to rush forward as well, not just with its Marauder horses, but with another unit of Marauder champions interspersed. Unfortunately, so far doesn't do any crazy damage to the enemy horsemen, but we do have a little bit of help from one of our units of the crossbows, which were fighting down here, as in one of the units that was earlier deployed here, and are now just going to fire on those units on the bridge. That said, we're not going to be able to hold the bridge much longer, as the units, the infantry there, are pretty much done for, so we're going to need to send reinforcements before the enemy breaks through. Up here it looks like our pikes are nearly done for, as these Marauder champions will absolutely break them apart. They're a hard-hitting, decent unit. And we're going to have to reinforce up here. However, our handgunners and our crossbows are making, well, perhaps not quick work of the enemy whalers, but are starting to knock them out. And hopefully a few more volleys will see these guys off, and we'll be able to switch to those marauders with great weapons instead. Our mortars are also firing at the whalers, as I figured it would be a pretty high priority to actually knock them out. Alrighty, and here come reinforcing pikemen to both chase the enemy down and to distract those marauders while our handgunners do the work. Unfortunately, it looks like our other pikemen have indeed broken, and marauders will be heading towards our crossbows, who, to be fair, are nearly out of ammunition and will no longer be able to provide too much value from that, but we'll have to hold the line instead in melee. Other units are moving in. It looks like there's another unit of marauders with great weapons down below the bridge, so we're going to have to defend it with these, or defend these crossbows with the pikes, and our lord is also in... he's in okay shape. He's at about 75% HP, and it looks like the last of the spears are about to rout, or at least will do so soon, so we're going to send the Empire Captain down there to help out. Looks like our crossbows, or not crossbows, our pikes and swords, which apparently combines into spikes, have also routed and or shattered, and it will just be handgunners facing off against these marauder horses, though it looks like they should be able to take them out. The horsemen are in pretty bad shape. Yeah, this one unit of pikes did pretty well throughout this battle, I think. And they certainly made a good showing of themselves. Also, just out of curiosity, how much damage did these crossbows able to do? 18k damage and 79k, or 79k, and 79 kills, and then 18k damage and 71 kills. Both of these did fantastic. I'm very happy with this particular deployment and the use of this narrow choke point. Anyway, the enemy units are flooding onto the field, or flooding towards the minor capture point up here. And we're gonna do our best to hold them, but you know what? That's just another choke point that they're going to have to suffer at. We've got pikes moving in, and they're going to move aside so that the handgunners can fire into the sides of the enemy. Unfortunately, our lord has gotten completely surrounded by marauder champions here, and he just can't get out. These are great weapons, they're armor-piercing, and even though our mortars and both of our defensive towers are firing at them, they take a long time to bring down. And they just refuse to rout despite the relatively small numbers that they have, and they're hitting very, very hard as well. So our lord's down to 858 HP, and it's not looking like he's going to be able to survive unless we can force them to rout. Alright, come on, try to get out. He keeps trying to get out, but it's not working. Crossbows are also providing a little bit of support, but unfortunately he does get overrun by the remnants of these units, and they're shaken as well. But hey, a great job to them for bringing the lord down. Granted, it was just a random summoned lord that we got specifically for this battle, but still, you gotta give credit where it's due. Anyway, over on this side, this choke point once again still not really working for the enemy. The pikes have seen off another unit of marauders, and now the handgunners are going to be able to fire into the backs of those marauder champions. You know what, this episode may be just, you know, little for fun battles that aren't really strictly necessary, but damn it if they aren't some really good ones. In my opinion, anyway. Alright, come on, get another nice volley into the backs of those Marauder champions, and there we go, they are now broken, and with the Marauder champions, it looks like their Marauders with great weapons will break as well. Still a few units of horsemen on the field, but oh, no, not on the field for much longer, as the Empire Captain and this last unit of swords will be able to hold them long enough for the enemy army to rout, and the battle will be ours. Still very bizarre to be in Cathay right now, but at the very least, we did manage to pull it off. Honestly, I was not expecting to win here, but I'm pretty happy that we did, even though it will mean probably less XP for Gavin. It's nice to see these minor settlement battles on occasion. Especially since a lot of our units really did great work here. Our crossbows got plenty of damage. Both of our units of handgunners are really cleaned up. These guys got 22k damage, and these guys got 20k and 124 kills. Fantastic. And there we go, a Pyrrhic victory, but obviously these are garrison units and we don't really care about them, though now I'm a little bit attached to them, considering what they pulled off, so great job to them. Alrighty, a very fun little fight. I guess this episode is a couple of just for fun battles, neither of which were necessary per se, but they both gave us a win and a fun fight at that, so I think they were worth our time. I get a little bit of gold out of that as well. I don't really care about the potion of speed, but otherwise, looking okay. I'm actually shocked at how quick the Norskins run, though. They have 1.5 times as much movement speed as our own infantry, so our own infantry move at 30 speed and theirs moves at 45. Those are some quick Norskins. Gotta love those chaos steroids and what they do to you. Alrighty, and he's going to back out. Let's see if... damn, not the confederations that we want. Wait, this is not confederation. Oh, we're actually going to lose fealty. We're going to support Averland's argument. I don't actually care about Nordland at the current time. They're going to be one of the last that we bother with confederating, mostly because they're all the way to the north. Averland will be next, so we're going to support Averland's argument. And Confederation not here yet. Okay, maybe next turn. Maybe that was... Just double checking here. Book of Ashur, Road Warden, Forbidden Rod, enemy killed in battle. Confederation between the Ice Court and the Ropsman. Oh, that's fantastic. I actually really wanted that to happen. Seducers of Sanash finally destroyed. Apprentice Wizard, Berserker Sword for Alberic Hot Anderson, but he doesn't need it. Potion of Speeds for Henry Albrecht, who will be deleted this turn, so he will not be needed as well. Salmon lost Blood Swamps, but that's fine. We expected it. Ready for duty, Owen Firth Fiddler, Weigel Schneider, and basically a bunch of units ready for duty. Negative growth in Ackendorf. Ackendorf's maxed out, so we don't care. Now we take out the rest of these guys. Gavin, that's you, buddy. Oh, in fact, if you could move to Serpent Jetty for us, that would be fantastic. Auto-resolve these guys. And they should be destroyed for good. And a little bit of money out of it as well. Alright, and I will probably give Gavin some items shortly, like some actual items, since he's acting as a real lord now. Although a few other items, well, we'll see. Anyway, you are going to move towards Serpent Jetty since that's what you've begun doing. And you know what, Henry, move along here. You can help out. Let's put you into an camp, though. You're probably not going to be able to move as fast. Well, actually, you can move fast enough. Alright, another Soulfire is always worth our time. Then let's see what we have here. Engra, Nyland. Oh right, and now we're the auto-resolve killing our war sleds. And as somebody pointed out in the comments of that episode a couple of episodes ago, it seems to have not actually shown us that the war sleds were going to be destroyed. So just auto-resolve it being obnoxious. What do we have in terms of defenders here? Oh. You may actually want to heal up for a few turns, or wait until Boris arrives. Unfortunately, he can't reach us in March stance, so he'll have to keep moving in camp for the next couple of turns. But that's okay, it'll give time for Dirk Sido to heal at the very least. We could besiege these guys, but with the amount of damage that we've taken, I think maybe we're better off not fighting them at the current time. 2 War Mammoths and a Frostworm are a little bit much. Now, more importantly than that, since these guys have confederated, this means their empire becomes contiguous and is now a lot better than it was before, which I am very happy about. Also, apparently Boris was able to capture the monolith of Festerlung, and let's see, Tong. How many territories did the Tong have left? Let me just see here. Just the one, fantastic. So, what we're going to want to do is we're going to tell Boris to occupy the Burning Monolith. Yes, this means we're losing allegiance, but honestly, we're probably never going to get enough allegiance with Boris specifically to make good use. We should take out the Writhing Fortress with Karl. It would leave the Bleeding Spire, but we can leave that to Nud. Nud can instead take the plans of Zunbai Jin. Both are undefended, so should be auto-resolvable. We're not going to bother with them, and we're just going to occupy it. We're obviously not going to collect the income, and we're going to pop you into, I guess, the host Festag. In fact, probably everywhere in Norska will need to host Festag as well. Kadatha secured, and we're not going to build anything here. Nud, you will head to the Bleeding Spire. Karl, you are going to go to the Writhing Fortress and do the same thing there, and then we'll get your fight against the enemy at the Howling Citadel, most likely, where Archaon is. Auto-resolve this. Well, there's some forces here, but they're still too weak. They're just too weak. There's no need. I really don't trust auto-resolve now, since the since that thing with the war sled. But anyway, that's another territory taken from Archaon's faction. And there we go. Looks like he'll be down both of his vassals soon as well, and we'll see how that goes. But we're gonna have to see next time or the time after that, depending on how long it takes, as we are once more out of time, and I'm gonna have to call the episode here. We can't quite reach Blood Swamps, I wonder where he's gonna go from here. You know what? I know this is gonna cause us attrition, but we're gonna pop you into ambush stance. I'm gonna hope that Luther goes after Axolotl, even at the cost of damage to our Lord. If he doesn't go for us, then we attack. If he does, well, then the ambush will hopefully succeed. Either way, I'm gonna call it here. Next time we continue advancing. That's really all that I have to say these current times. We might be able to hit Mazdamundi as well if we do this right. We should be able to catch him and destroy his army, and while Morathi and everybody else is still nearby, this is looking like it's a pretty good opportunity for Marcus to make some headway. I also see that the Dark Elves are finally making their move with a big stack.
You waste my time.
No, nothing crazy in it. Maybe these guys would be able to overwhelm it with sheer numbers, even if they are weak forces. We're gonna have to see, so stay tuned for more Karl. Don't forget to leave those likes and comments. All glory to the algorithm, and thanks for watching.